I know a lot of you guys are visiting. I know there's people here who don't believe in God, and I get tempted here to argue with you and say, you want to debate about something? Let me give you some facts. Let's talk history. Let's talk prophecy. Let's talk archaeology. Let's just talk about these different holy books out there and just start comparing this and that.
The thing is, when it comes to religion, archaeology can tell us a lot about what people thought, but it can't really tell us what actually happened. We can extrapolate from the evidence, we can make some pretty educated guesses, but a lot of the claims of supernatural activity made by religious people, activity which would have left a mark on the earth, just don't appear to have actually happened, which makes them rather difficult to believe. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. We've got a fella today called Francis Chan who is talking about his experiences talking to atheists, claiming that theists are making a certain mistake trying to convince us that God is real. The problem is, he is making a mistake, just not that one.
When Jesus spoke, when he was on this earth, he used a phrase that no one else in Scripture uses. He uses this phrase, after he'd give a message, he'd say, "He who has ears, let him hear." He says that all the time. No one else says it in Scripture, just Jesus. He who has ears, let him hear. A very important phrase, because he would give a message and then he wouldn't try to argue with anyone. He goes, if you got ears to hear it, you'll hear it. If you don't, you won't.
Well, that doesn't sound like copping out or nothing. Anything asserted without evidence can be dismissed the same way. You need to give any logical and honest person a reason to believe you. It's only the gullible who'll take you at your word. That's the mistake he makes with atheists, assuming that's what's good enough for the faithful will be good enough for the rational.
In fact, sometimes he'd give a message that was hard to understand and use parables, and because he says, you know what, if you really want to understand it, you'll get it.
And then you'll argue about it with people who got it differently. Wars have been started over less, and certainly schisms which resulted in new denominations have happened over interpretation. But he who has ears will hear it, right?
I always want to argue because people say, well, I don't believe in Jesus because I watched the DaVinci Code.
Yeah, well, I never saw the DaVinci Code, so let's roll right along.
If that's your argument, let me ask you a question, though. If I can prove to you that the DaVinci Code is such an absolute joke, then will you believe in Jesus?
No.
No, because you'll move on to the Gospel of Judas, right? But how about if I explain that away too? Then will you believe in Jesus?
No.
No, you'll find something else. You'll say, well, it's because there's all these hypocrites, Okay, so if we got rid of all the hypocrites in the church, okay, and you were here by yourself, and you just, then are you going to believe?
And this is the problem. You're not going to convince me by proving me that I'm wrong. You still have to prove yourself right. Jesus doesn't win by default. He doesn't get to fill in the blanks just because nobody else can prove everything. Even if you can show that absolutely every other claim is wrong, you still have all of your work ahead of you, because you have to be able to support the truth of your own claim beyond faith.
Jesus' point was, I'm not going to argue everything on this earth. Are you telling me you're going to believe once I can debunk every single other teaching there is on this planet? Because a new one's going to rise about every 25 minutes.
Again, no, you're not supposed to debunk, you're supposed to prove. Stop reacting to everybody else and start proving your own case. It's only in the case of atheism where the idea is that religious people's claims don't match reality when reacting and debunking become necessary. And even then, we probably wouldn't bother if religious people could stop making nuisances of themselves, meddling in our lives in the name of their gods, who they claim have ultimate authority, but which they cannot prove exist. I mean, seriously, think about Wiccans. They believe some pretty wacky magical shit too, but do you see people making a big deal out of them? No. Why? Because they can share and play nicely with the other kids. We don't argue with or about them because even if we succeeded in convincing them to give it up, we wouldn't be accomplishing anything worthwhile. Hell, even with the Jews, about the only thing anybody really objects to is circumcision. But those darned Christians and Muslims, they seem to feel the need to meddle in other people's lives, and that's why the arguments start to fly.
And you want to keep arguing. Is that really the issue? Or is the truth that you don't want to believe in Jesus?
And now we get into typical Christian persecution. Aw, nobody likes us. They reject us just 'cause. Nah, dude, you just can't meet the standards of proof by which we show the existence of everything else. But when Christians are run up against a bit of proof they can't provide, they just tell us we need to have faith, as if that sidesteps the need for proving their claims. It doesn't. That's a cop-out.
If you don't want to believe in God, you won't, regardless of what anyone throws at you, right?
No. There are a lot of things in this world I wish didn't exist, but I'm not going to deny their reality. Not after they've been proved to me. And if anything divine or holy does exist, I want to know about it so that I'm not blindsided by the consequences. Even if a God I positively loathe turns out to be real, and it can be proved to me that such a creature exists, I wouldn't deny it just because I don't like it. But so far, religious people have done an ass-poor job of backing up their religion with facts, proving the magical parts of their faith to be something that exists outside of their beliefs. But now he's trying to pawn the blame off on us, the atheists.
Jesus died for you. Do you know that? He did. I'm not going to convince you of it. I'm just telling you, he did.
And I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. I'm not going to show you the deed, just hand me the dough. Same sort of deal, except you can actually see the Brooklyn Bridge.
And then that body was raised. And he walked again and he appeared to over 500 people. He just started talking to different people. And these people, their lives were changed completely. And they went out and started telling everyone, I can't believe what I just saw.
And not one of those people went, sure, right. Dead guy came back to life? Sure he did. Did you get it on your cell phone cam? Oh, right. They didn't have handheld cameras back then. In an extremely superstitious, scientifically illiterate time, people spreading stories about resurrections were totally taken at face value. Apparently. And all 500 of those folks obviously knew Jesus personally, could tell that he hadn't been switched for a lookalike or anything. And they were there for when he was put in the tomb, so they knew he really was dead. Right? Despite having no actual evidence that isn't just word of mouth and in books that read like primitive fantasy novels, we know all of this really happened and isn't a fairy tale that has gotten taken way too seriously by its fanboys. Right? Do you begin to see why all of this has gone off the rails? Why it's awfully difficult to believe? This is the mistake theists make with atheists, thinking that what's good enough for the faithful is also good enough for the logical, and acting like we're the ones who are at fault if it isn't. If you really want to convince us that a God is real, you need objective, empirical, physical data which can be independently verified by impartial judges, just like every other new discovery in this world. Trying to treat religion as a special case is where you've gone wrong. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.
Droids don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when their videos aren't rated. Bionic dances are known to do that.